and welcome back to the Rundown. My name is Carla de la Paz.
And my name is Caelum and coming up in this week's episode, we take a look into Allergy season with our very own Moemina. We're joined live at the desk by the writers and director of the Trobe student play Orgy.
We look into stress last week and are joined by Mitch and Caelum to discuss the controversial US Open Women's Final and the AFL Finals. But before we head into those stories, let's have a look at the latest news headlines. Chinese video surveillance companies have become entrenched in Australia's government. The cameras were used to identify minorities of ethnic descent and political dissidents within China. However, they were recently banned by the US due to concerns they were creating surveillance networks amongst federal agencies, according to the ABC. The cameras used by the Australian government were used to monitor potential security threats on Australia's military bases. Another is used directly in front of the Canberra office that involves some of Australia's biggest government top lawyers and a federal department on national security and intelligence agencies. Within those two cameras, two were made from Chinese companies, Hikvision and Duhua. Both face long-standing accusations of spying on behalf of the Chinese government. International Cyber Policy Centre at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute have openly expressed their concerns with the security cameras, claiming it could potentially contribute towards espionage activity. The Chinese companies Hikvision and Duhua have both been accused of spying by Western security researchers in the past to allow Chinese snooping. However, the Chinese government rejects the claims it has used Chinese surveillance cameras for espionage and will now be under further investigation.
Two homeowners in Melbourne, southeast, claim construction of the state's government Skyrail project has caused serious structural damage to their homes. Zoe Sakala's unit in Clayton South faces onto a newly built section of raised railway tracks, which is part of the project to remove railway level crossings across Melbourne. Ms. Sakala claims her unit has sustained severe structural damage since construction on that project, and an engineering report she commissioned found it was highly possible some of that damage was as a result of work on Skyrail in January last year. A separate report commissioned by the Level Crossing Removal Authority found that type of damage was most likely caused by a loss of moisture in the soil and around the building after plumbing work completed 2 years earlier. Repair costs could cost her up to $20,000. Mr. Carla said she took up an offer from the Alex RA to get free condition report for her property, which found there was no significant damage to the house before the construction began. Mr. Carla's next-door neighbour, Amy Zucon, has similar problems. She said she had trouble closing her front door because the building had shifted so much the deadbolt did not line up with the lock. Ms. Zucon has owned the property since 2011 and said there has never been any structural problems before the construction work began.
Teachers at a Brisbane primary school have disciplined a 9-year-old girl for refusing to stand for the national anthem during assembly. Canmore South State school student Harper Nielsen was given a lunchtime detention on Friday for peacefully protesting against the song, as she said it was wrong. She quotes, "When it says we are young, it completely disregards the Indigenous Australians who were here before us over 50,000 years ago," she said. Harper told ABC Brisbane she felt annoyed the school was punishing her for expressing her beliefs. The girl's father, Mark Nielsen, who was an associate professor at the School of Psychology at the University of Queensland, said he completely supported his daughter and her views. In a statement, a spokesperson for Queensland Department of Education said it had met with the students and family involved to discuss the issue. The school has been respectful of the students' wishes and has provided other alternatives to singing the national anthem, the spokesperson said. State schools set out clear standards of behaviour that they expect from their students in their responsible behaviour plan. The school said if any parents have any concerns, they are encouraged to contact the principal.
At the US Open Female Finals on Saturday, Japanese final Naomi Osaka won her first world title, defeating the now world number 16 and 23-time Grand Slam winner Serena Williams and moving up 12 places to a career high. However, Serena Williams' outburst during the 2018 Grand Slam overshadowed Osaka's winning moment. Williams thought she was treated more harshly by the chair umpire in the US Open Finals than the man would have been. Williams was cited by official Carlos Ramos for 3 code violations during her loss to Naomi on Saturday. Since the outburst, Williams has been fined $17,000 and has caused mixed opinions in the media and online. While many think she was in the right, others think she was overreacting and claiming that men didn't get the same punishment as she did. Journalist Miranda Devine appeared on the Today Show and said, "I think she's an utter disgrace and a bully, and I think that we should give the umpire a medal. There's been a lot of controversy over the incident, and we will have more of that in sport later on."
Sniffle season is amongst us, and luckily this springtime we can expect a lower than average pollen count. Canberra's pollen monitoring program has already predicted that this year will be less severe in comparison to previous years due to our dry winter. The pollen monitoring program has been developing data for over 10 years and have now developed a major upgrade to their pollen app and website, which will provide users with much more data, meaning Australians are readier than ever to take on the allergy season. Hay fever sufferers have been encouraged to report their symptoms to the pollen monitoring program to help improve their data and increase their chances of making more accurate predictions in the coming years. As for now, hay fever sufferers can rest easy knowing that their sniffles won't be so bad in the future.
It's that time of the year. Everyone's suffering from hay fever.
Springtime, and I'm very lucky that I don't suffer from hay fever at all. And I think like most people, I get the occasional sniffles, but nothing too severe. What about you, Katarina?
I don't suffer from hay fever. I do know a lot of people that do, and they struggle. And it's just you have to find your own way. I think people use Zyrtec, Claritine. Other people don't use anything at all.
Yeah. Well, I know that my grandma suffers from allergy really bad, but I didn't inherit anything, so...
Yeah, me neither. So we're good.
Really lucky.
Best people talk about this, aren't we?
True. But on the topic of allergies, our good friend Moemina went out to speak with some Trobe students last week to get a better idea of how they deal with those pesky hay fever symptoms. So let's check it out.
Spring has officially sprung and allergy season's right here. So I'm here at the Simpson Lawn to talk to the Trobe students about how they combat allergies. Do you get allergies during spring?
Sometimes, but what I have done this time is I've taken flu shots.
Yeah, sometimes, like more nasal stuff, but not too much.
They have like many allergies. I get like pretty intense hay fever, especially at the turn of the season. Like the first week of spring is hell for me.
So, do you get seasonal allergies?
Yes. And also during winter I get blocked noses, and then I get hay fever during spring, and as a result my policy has always been carrying tissues, like always.
Very convenient. Do you get seasonal allergies?
I do, but not during the season. I get them after summer.
Okay, that's very strange.
It is super strange. I don't know why it happens. My family's the complete opposite, but yeah.
So there's lots of things that you can do. So you can either go for a nasal spray or you can go for a throat spray sometimes. But what most people do is just get like a tablet.
My mother has, and she always wear like glasses during the spring.
Yeah, my dad gets it really badly during the seasons, but he usually just uses a lot of medicine, or sometimes it doesn't help at all, and it's just something you gotta live through, I guess. I don't know.
So basically heaps of drugs and just live through it.
Yes, exactly.
Do you get allergies during spring?
Yep.
Right. What do you do to combat them?
Blow my nose a lot, drink a lot of tea, sleep as much as I can.
Do you take antihistamines?
No. Stay natural, I believe.
Just, I don't know, lots of tea I suppose and a lot of sleep. That'll do it. A lot of citrus kind of helps, but doesn't really.
Definitely. Just tea in bed and sleep.
Yes, my boyfriend gets such bad allergies, not just in spring, but throughout the whole year actually, because he has polyps in his nose.
What does he do to combat it? Like, does he take antihistamines or?
There's not really a lot he can do because of the polyps, but I know that using steroid creams work.
A pill a day keeps the doctor away.
All right. I don't know what to say to that. Do you take any antihistamines?
No. Nothing at all. I don't need those.
Would you like one?
Love a tissue. Hi, do you get seasonal allergies?
No.
Alright. Do you know anyone that does?
Also no.
Okay then, do you know how to combat seasonal allergies?
I find the best method to combat seasonal allergies is to not have them.
Always stay prepared for the sudden bursts of allergies. Moemina Shakira, The Rundown.
Thank you for joining us, Moemina.
No problem.
It's great to have you. You went out this week and spoke to the Trobe students. What did you learn?
I learned like a lot of La Trobe students opt for drugs, antihistamines, and eye drops or anything like that. And some of them usually take the natural option of just some herbal teas, rest, and staying indoors. Yeah.
Can you explain what are seasonal allergies and how to treat them?
Seasonal allergies usually occur in any other season, spring, winter, but they're more common in spring, and it's usually known as hay fever. But yeah, it's just the pollen count in the air, the dust. So just outdoor allergies, basically.
Yeah, so can you describe to me the issues that you have with allergies? Because I was saying that I don't really get hay fever or allergies during the springtime. So describe your struggles to me, Moemina.
I struggle a lot with allergies and hay fever. I get really bad asthma attacks, which is like a severe side effect of hay fever. And and it's horrible. I mean, the watery eyes. So I take a lot of, antihistamines and my Ventolin, which is always in my bag, and eye drops, which I find so convenient. Like allergy eye drops you can get over the counter, and that's how I deal with my allergies.
Yeah. So you've basically answered my other question. I was going to ask you how you what rituals you do to keep healthy during the allergy season.
So I take a lot of herbal tea. I think that helps with the itchy throat, which is hot herbal tea. Just staying indoors if it's really if you can, just staying indoors, or walking less outdoors, taking a car if that's possible. But yeah, because a lot of the symptoms, allergy symptoms are usually the runny nose, the itchy eyes, itchy throat, and it can get worse depending on the person and depending on the day. So just to be cautious.
Good advice.
And for those suffering and really want this to be over, how long does allergy season usually last?
During spring, throughout spring. But it can happen whenever. People get allergies during winter or fall, but usually spring, and throughout spring basically you're going to have to deal with it. So it's horrible.
Interesting. Well, we'd love to thank Moemina for joining us here in the studio to discuss all things allergies. As we mentioned before, it looks like pollen in the air won't be so bad this year, so let's hope hay fever sufferers can have a comfortable springtime.
But we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by two of the Trobe Student Theatre field members to discuss their active theatre festival play, Orgy. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, guys. Sitting with us on the desk is the very talented Carla Michelangeli and Caitlin Rhodes. Now, if those names are really familiar to you, then you've probably heard of their student-written play exploring sex and identity in the modern world called Orgy, presented by the Student Theatre and Film as part of Activate 2018. Thank you so much for being here, guys. How are we?
Yeah, really good. We're good.
Fantastic.
For those who haven't seen the play, can you first tell us what Orgy is about?
Largely it's about sex, lots of sex, identity, and how it all fits into the modern society that we live in.
Presented by 6 people having a house party who don't know what the hell they're doing.
Oh, that's quite interesting. So what was the hardest part about writing an entire play / production? So take me through the process of finding actors, finding time to rehearse. Take me through that.
We actually started rehearsals pretty early, like 2 months before we opened.
Okay.
And the audition process, well, we didn't think anyone would want to do it. Like, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did struggle, especially with the men, it was kind of strange. We had lots of females who were really interested, but the guys who read for the parts were more hesitant.
Yeah, they looked a bit uncomfortable at the initial reading.
Yeah, but we got a great cast, and once we started rehearsing, the script wasn't complete when we first brought it to them, so I would give them some prompts as the director, and then they would improvise some scenes, and then I would take it away and write scenes from that as well.
Well, you did a really good job. I actually came and watched the play. I was really pleasantly surprised. You did an amazing job, but you also discussed really important issues.
Mm-hmm.
How did you want to put that into the play and make audiences realise that?
We wanted to try and keep it as light as possible, because I'd written versions of it before where it had become really dark when you put the serious stuff in, but we knew that it was important to address the more serious stuff as well. But I let the cast sort of interpret it how they wanted to, and that kept it lighter, I think. Do you agree?
Yep.
What have people's reactions been to the play?
I heard a lot of people say that the orgy came out of nowhere, and that it's like they weren't expecting it to happen. They thought it was going to be a build up to nothing happening.
Oh,
and they
actually,
said it was,
I did that. That as well. Yeah.
They also said it was really well written too, and I'm actually really proud of that.
Yeah, and I've actually seen a lot of these the orgy posters around campus, and I was looking at it going, what is this?
That's what I wanted.
Oh, good. Well, then you've done really well, because I was going, what is going on over here? But anyway, do either of you guys see yourselves working in the entertainment industry, possibly as maybe actors or writers, directors? What are you guys planning?
I used to see myself as an actor. Then it occurred to me that it's quite difficult to get.
Yes.
And, yeah. But I've been told that I'm very good at what I do, but I think people say that because they have to.
Oh, I'm sure you're really good. Don't put yourself
I'm fantastic, yeah.
What about yourself, Caitlin?
I would definitely like to continue as a playwright.
Yeah.
It's been my ambition since I was like 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you both for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. Now on to our next story. It's Stressless Week at La Trobe, and Carla went out this week to investigate.
I did.
Did you have some fun? It's a very serious topic, so did you get some good insights?
Ironically, when I was doing this story, I was actually very stressed. So it kind of made sense that I did a stress-less week story, stressed out. But yeah, let's check it out. Let's have a look.
Like most university students, it's an ongoing battle to meet the grueling tasks that come with tertiary education. On the exterior, it might not seem hard to attend classes and write essays. However, the stress university students go through every day is severely underestimated. According to research conducted by Headspace and the National Union of Students, 70% of Australian students rated their mental health as poor or fair, with many reporting they felt hopeless and moody, in some cases even suicidal. In order to bring awareness to this issue and give La Trobe University students a well-needed breather in the middle of semester, the Student Union has organised a pancake breakfast to prepare for their Stress Week festival on Wednesday.
So pancake breakfast is part of our usual weekly breakfast that we do. This week it's a pancake breakfast because we're doing Stress Less, so it's part of the broader Stress Less week. Tomorrow's our well-being carnival, so we're going to have free food, a whole bunch of clubs and societies are going to be out and about, we're going to have some fun activities, we're going to have some externals coming down as well. We'll be having our regular barbecue, of course with a bunch of other food options. We're going to have ice cream, we're going to have slushies, we're going to have fairy floss. We're going to also have some fun activities, so we're going to have like an inflatable basketball that everyone can come along and play.
So what factors are contributing to this epidemic of anxious, stressed out students? Well, in order to get a better idea, we spoke to La Trobe University students themselves to find out what it is that is causing this outburst.
So probably like a combination of work and study. So I have a lot of assessments due right now, and I also work part-time, so trying to find a balance between those two things can be quite stressful.
It's a struggle. So I work night fill, so I work overnight, and then I come into uni the next day. So probably having less 9 a.m., 8 a.m. classes would probably help me a lot.
Well, it's definitely, I volunteer, I work part-time, I'm studying full-time, I try to maintain a social life, I try to go to the gym. Juggling everything, that's probably the most stressful part. It's not the individual things so much, it's just everything piling onto each other.
So if work commitments, university studies, and balancing a social life are some of the key factors behind stress levels, what measures should institutions take to help reduce stress amongst our students?
Maybe more counselling or like for some of my subjects, specifically, there's not always a lot of communication about assessments, and sometimes they're just put onto the students. So I feel like if there was more open dialogue on what is expected of us at times, then that would be helpful.
Making things like getting extensions on assignments a lot easier and a lot more flexible. I feel like what leads to a lot of students stressing out is they have 3 assignments at once due in the same day.
The Stress Week Wellbeing Carnival will be held on Wednesday this week in the Agora from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for all La Trobe students. Carla de la Paz reporting for The Rundown.
So I think that story is really topical given that just before we had a stress week or student wellbeing festival.
So outside, yes.
Outside. But I can relate to a lot of what the students were saying over there because I actually have really severe anxiety.
I think a lot of students can because I don't think we see it, but a lot of students do struggle with stress and anxiety.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel all the symptoms when I get stressed out. So I get the headaches and the racing heart and I get really sore joints when I get stressed out for some reason. But it can definitely be super hard to manage, especially when it causes our bodies to go a little bit haywire. But what I do to relieve my stress, and if anybody else wants to use this advice, you may, I generally go for a run or I do some sort of physical activity, listen to music. It might sound a little bit sappy, but I go and give my mum a hug.
That's not sappy at all. Giving people hugs releases endorphins, and endorphins are the happy gene. It makes you happy.
Yeah, and it makes me super happy when I give my mum a hug, so then I don't feel so bad.
Well, stress and anxiety affects everyone, and everyone has different ways of dealing with them. Some people meditate, do some yoga. Journaling really helps, getting your thoughts on paper. And I think you just need to find what works for you, techniques that work for you. High-intensity workouts, running, like you said, works for people. Not for everyone, but it works for people.
Definitely does.
Yeah, and speaking of stress-related activities, Serena Williams got tempered at the US Finals this Saturday, making headlines around the world, which means it's now time for sport. We will be joined by Mitch and Caelum.
Welcome back. So in the studio we have our regular sports presenters, Mitch and Caelum. So what a jam-packed week we've had in sport. There have been a few controversies, as we heard before with the Serena Williams story at the beginning. So how are we feeling about that? Do we agree that she was treated unfairly, or do we have a different opinion?
Look, I think it's probably a hard one to judge by. There's obviously a lot of groups in this. You have obviously Williams is at the foreface of the whole story, and while it's a disappointing week to cap off, the US Open Finals is usually a big story of triumph, but probably overshadowed by the outburst, I'd say. Obviously Ramos, the adjudicator as well, is probably under a bit of fire, but I think the whole thing's probably been blown out a bit too much. When obviously racism, sexism comes into it, it's always going to get cover of that political side as well, which is disappointing. But when Osaka had a fantastic victory against one of the world's best ever, probably the best ever women's tennis player, and I think it was just a disappointing week to round off what was supposed to be a joyous week for tennis.
Yeah, it was Osaka's highlight of her career practically, and I think Serena overshadowed it all. What are your thoughts, Caelum?
Well, I think Mitch summarised it pretty perfectly. It's overshadowed, as you say, what was a great victory by Naomi Osaka, who won her first Grand Slam, and it was her victory ceremony was shrouded by boos and calls from the crowd, and it got to the point where Serena actually had to call fans to stop booing, and Osaka actually apologised for winning. So it overshadowed what was a great US Open for the women's draw, and obviously the men's draw finished as well. So it was, again, it overshadowed what was a fantastic tournament, and it's unfortunate to see the fact that it's come to this.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the Naomi thing. I felt when I saw the footage online, and I felt it was disappointing to see the crowd react that way. I mean, that was her first time. That was her spotlight, and then with people booing and making her feel apologise. For me, that was sad. I felt bad for her because she said to say I'm sorry for winning. No one should have to be in that
devastating for her, because even on Instagram, I think it was Serena's fans went onto her Naomi's Instagram page and commented, "You shouldn't have won."
Yeah, she was receiving
It was
harassment.
horrible. Harassment, it's horrible.
Yeah, I think one thing is absolute full credit to Naomi. At 20 years old, she's still very young, younger than most of us as well. And winning your debut or maiden Grand Slam title is a fantastic effort, especially against Williams. And I think the annoying part is that a lot of this is people have come out as who's on the bad side, but I don't think there really was one. Serena Williams was standing up for what she believes in and prideful, and the umpire was doing his job. And I think the ATP said that he was done it with complete professionalism and integrity. So I didn't really think there was a bad side coming out of this really until the media blew it up to this circus in the end, and we're talking about it 5-6 days later.
I just think Serena was having like a really bad day and she threw a temper tantrum and she's been turned into a meme now, so that's a whole different story. But
that always happens.
I think she could have handled it a bit better.
Definitely. And I mean, I was saying before that I can sort of see two sides of the coin with this situation. I can agree that women in sport sometimes, in media in general, are treated quite differently sometimes when it comes to their male counterparts. But yeah, I think I agree with Katerina that I think it just might have been a bit of an off day for Serena.
Yeah, I think tennis has always been a big one with men's and women's, especially with sets played and wages and how it's the money's shared evenly throughout the competition. But I think this is probably something you can move on from. I don't see it happening again anytime soon.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think it'll be interesting to see both parties come out the Australian Open early next year.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of sports finals, the AFL Finals are coming around and...
They are. Let's have a quick rundown of last week's games. So in the first week, we had Richmond versus Hawthorn. Richmond won by 31 points. Melbourne versus Geelong. Melbourne won by 29 points. GWS versus Sydney. GWS won 39. And West Coast and Collingwood won by 16. Were these the teams that you tipped to win for the first week?
They were, and I don't think there were too many surprises with the actual results, but I think the way the games played out perhaps surprised a few people. I don't think too many people predicted Melbourne to be as dominant in that first quarter against the Cats, 5-0. And then I think a lot of people probably didn't expect Collingwood to be in the game for as long as they were against the Eagles. They were in the game pretty much till the last couple of minutes. So, I mean, it was an intriguing first week of finals, and I'm looking forward to what week 2, the semi-finals, have got on offer.
Yeah, I thought that I was at the game Friday night, the Melbourne-Geelong game. Geelong found myself pretty disappointed from the start and pretty much played out the rest of the game, unfortunately. And obviously there's questions over Geelong's finals over the last 7 years or so under Chris Scott's tenure. But the Tigers Thursday night just proved that they're the team to beat. 5 legs in front of Hawthorn all the way through. It's going to be very hard to beat them at the MCG. They've got another week off. And obviously the Collingwood West Coast game was fantastic. It was unfortunately the only close game for the week, but the Pies, they look towards GWS this weekend. I think that's going to be a cracking game. I don't see it being a sellout game, unfortunately, with GWS coming down to the G, but I think it's certainly going to be the game of the weekend.
Who else is playing this weekend?
Well, we've got Hawthorn versus Melbourne on Friday night, so it'll be Clarko's boys against Simon Goodwin's boys, and what will be a fascinating contest. I'm glad that I'm going to be attending. And it's going to be a game between, I guess, two really young up-and-coming sides. Hawthorn's coming out of a rebuild after their golden era, whereas Melbourne are just starting to come up in their first finals run since 2006. So it's going to be a great game. And do you have any tips for that one, Mitch?
I watching Melbourne on Friday, I think they played very well, but I still think they're probably a bit overrated in how the Geelong went. I think Geelong were just having a bad day. So I'm going to tip the Hawks for this one. And for Saturday night's game, I think I'm sticking with GWS all the way to the flag.
From this stage, who do you think is going to get to the grand final?
Well, Richmond is almost certain to reach the final. They've only got to win one more game, and that's at the G, where they haven't lost for 20-plus matches. But I think if one team could do that, and call me biased, but I think if Collingwood get up against the Giants this week, they've really challenged Richmond in these two games this season, and they were perhaps in the game for longer than what many people thought they would be. But against the Giants this Saturday night, it's going to be a tough game, especially against GWS, who dismantled Sydney at the weekend.
I'm always root for the underdog in situations. So what about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I think GWS, stick with them. I think they'll a tough week against the Pies, no doubt, and even if they get through against the Tigers at the G, the hardest fixture you can have in AFL. But I think they'll stick fat, and I think if they can get a couple of names back, Josh Kelly, unlikely to play this week, unfortunately, my favourite player in the league by a country mile. But if he can stick in with the 22, that'd be fantastic. As far as the other side of the finals go, I see Hawthorn winning this week, but West Coast at West Coast, probably the second hardest fixture behind Richmond at the G. So at the moment, I think we're going to have a GWS West Coast grand final.
That's good. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, girls.
We'll be back next week with more
We
sports,
will.
breaking news, and entertainment.
But as always, what do we say when we finish?
Goodbye. Bye.